Today we're going to be talking a little bit about a couple of the scriptures that were talked about in the Bible that have got Christians to an understanding that Jesus kept his word, the Bible is telling the truth, and the millennial reign of Jesus already took place, and we are living in a continuation of the blessings of the return of Jesus, but the saints have moved on to the camp of saints or possibly to heaven. But that does not change the promises that were given, according to the Bible, to the Christians. We are living through what we call Satan's short season for whatever legalities took place amongst the council in heaven. And there is a heavenly council that meets. And I have never sat at it, nor have you, but we read about this heavenly council. And evidently, it is the place where principalities were decided to be assigned to different places on earth to judge over them before they fell and turned and did not keep their rightful estates. They are the place that makes decisions for the angels. It's almost like the governing body of heaven. So we don't know a whole lot about that because we have never been there. We only have certain things we can read about it to make an understanding. It is a conclusion of ours that somewhere along the line, there are legalities, there are laws or things set forth about this universe, this place we live here, and the governing bodies, and why Satan and the angels are judged the way they're judged, why Satan has been released again for a time. There is some kind of laws, some kind of justice system that is taking place. I believe it was probably known and is now hidden from mankind so that we can't know with a clear decision-making process why Satan was released, why the things occur in our life the way they are, why we even get here, why we're born into these bodies, why we die. There is a legal system. Perhaps some speculate that we pre-existed, our souls existed. Perhaps we were another heavenly being. Our souls existed in a different realm and we were part of the fallen. Or whenever the rebellion took place, we did not make a decision. Whatever the case may be, we're born to this earth and then we're given from this place called the Hall of Souls in the Bible, called the Guff. And we arrive here and then we are now given a choice, given a free choice who we will follow. Somehow God has chosen us and we either accept or not accept the message and salvation of Christ. And there are people who reject Christ and they continue in their rebellion. And from what we understand, then they receive their just rewards in the end for not accepting the God of the Bible, for not accepting the pathway, not accepting their decisions, whether it be past existence in the soul form or in the present form in this life, and choosing to rebel. And ultimately, they're really choosing the side of the rebellion or Lucifer or Satan. So let's look at a couple scriptures here. Like I say, I have not heard in my entire life a scholar who can prove any of that. It is speculation, whether you get angry at it or you feel you have a more correct version of the stories to figure out. You must understand your relevance of coming to those conclusions are based mostly off of information provided you from a time and a place you were not at. You did not personally sit there. You didn't hear it. You didn't create it. So try to curb your enthusiasm to push your point unless you know for a fact, because none of this really changes the gospel or the scripture in a way in which salvation occurs. We're all trying to piece together some of this cloudy, hidden stuff during Satan's great deception going on now and the information that's been taken from us. So let's move on here. The reason Christians are drawing the conclusion of the millennial reign is from a couple of scriptures like this. It says in Revelation, "And I saw seats and they that sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus, and for the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, which most of us believe is Nero, neither his image, neither had taken his mark upon their foreheads or their hands. And they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. So in Matthew 16:27, we read, for the Son of Man is going to come in his Father's glory with his angels, and then he will reward each person according to what they have done. Truly, I tell you, some of you standing here will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Now, if Jesus is talking to the people right in front of him, and he says, surely you standing here will not die before you see the Son of Man returning. You have to take and do a lot of mental gymnastics to jump rope and do backflips 2,000 years later and make the events about today. Our conclusion is Satan failed at his attempts at world governance and rule. Jesus defeated him when he returned and after the cross. So what we are living through now is Satan's deception, and he is recreating the events of those days in an attempt this time, as he's been released, to see if he can fulfill his one world government and create his new world order without any Christians and in complete control, get rid of anybody who believes in God and make himself God, and give Jesus no reason to return to this place, to establish any other forever reign or destroy it or whatever might take place. He's trying to give God no reason to care about this place anymore. That is just a theory about why we see any correlation now to any events. It's to get Christians to sit back, do nothing, think it's the end time, allow Satan to do every imaginable evil thing, and especially to take over our countries, to sit back and be a watcher. How many times have you heard that term from the sports fan type of Christian who believes that just like sitting and watching sports and not participating in life and being cozy or thinking I'm just going to go vote every 4 years, that their job is to read scriptures in their comfortable house with the heat running or the air conditioning and sit back and watch the news and let events take place. Let's move on. So in Matthew 24, it says, truly I tell you, this generation will certainly not pass away until all these things have happened. That sounds like right then. Truly, in Mark 13, truly I tell you, this generation certainly will not pass away until all these things have happened. In Luke 21, truly I tell you, this generation certainly not pass away until all things have happened. Revelation 22, look, I am coming soon, soon. Blessed is the one who keeps the words of the prophecy written in the scroll. Revelation 22, 12, look, I am coming soon. My reward is with me, and I will give to each person according to what he has done. Revelation 20:20, he who testifies to these things says, yes, I am coming soon. Amen. Return, Lord Jesus. Now, the theories that are helping to support the belief now in this millennial reign that took place are the theories surrounding these buildings we are finding, these ancient cities and these castles, these enormous, beautiful architectural structures that literally make no sense to anyone who's ever done any kind of construction or worked in any industry of artistry, to thinking that the historical narrative that the liars told us about ox carts and primitive living in the Middle Ages and donkeys and all of these sorts of things, that they, with their technology, with their soft bronze chisels, cut millions of bricks, large bricks, and carried them up on top of the side of mountains and built enormous castles with beautiful architecture, with gold and marble and fine materials, with primitive technology. So let's go on and talk about the fact that that is beyond common sense for us, as we are no longer 7 years old or 10 years old in elementary school believing whatever they tell us. We have a good amount of common sense. Now, my grandfather was a developer, developed neighborhoods, was a builder. My father also was a builder, developed neighborhoods and made custom homes. And I flipped homes. I would buy homes, and then they would be in bad shape, and I would totally renovate the entire home. So all of us for 3 generations now have worked in areas of construction and building. So we have a good idea, a family history of understanding how things are constructed. And to me, these buildings, as I study the appearance of them, the materials used, where they're located, it is beyond my stretch of imagination to believe the stories I have been told about these historical buildings. It is cognitive dissonance. One, we're told, primitive. People lived in log cabins at Abraham Lincoln's time. Yet in the Middle Ages, they built structures that we can't figure out how to build today. So let's take a look at these buildings, and you'll see some pictures here. And when you look at this, the interior, not just the exterior, but the interior of these buildings, the ornateness, there are so many things going on in this picture that you can hardly gather it all staring at it, just sitting and staring for a few minutes. Normally you see videos about Tartaria or the Millennial Kingdom, and it's going from picture to picture to picture, but you're not really taking a look at one center room and the ornateness that is going on, because it is so beautiful and so overwhelming, the amount of artistry and masterful construction and the type of masters at building and architecture that had to be involved in creating just that one room, and not, needless to say, not the whole entire castle or a 700-room building during a time when supposedly it was peasants and feudal lords and people didn't have bathrooms and showers, and you get the whole picture. There's something wrong with what we've been told. We're obviously in Satan's short season of deception, from history to what is taking place currently behind the scenes, and how our Christian governments are being usurped by this entire narrative that's taking place. Remember, Jesus said, "My people perish for lack of knowledge." And I assure you from my research, there is less than 1% of Christians who know the information about how the dark side has usurped the entire Christian nations of the world, the tactics that they are using. The Millennial Kingdom is the first step in waking up to the fact that, hey, we got deceived about this. Perhaps something else is behind what's deceiving us about taking over our governments now. What happened? Who lied to us? Maybe we are in the short season of Satan. Like I said, we perish. Jesus said we perish for lack of knowledge, and this is true. As we look at these buildings, the architecture, we'll go through very quickly here some of the things you who aren't builders may not have thought of. First of all, these buildings are built of stone, and some of them quite large stones that all have to be uniformly cut to an exact size, like a brick. So there are literally millions of stones involved in building some of these buildings. The logistics in creating millions of bricks during this time period. If you think about it, how long does it take the infrastructure? You have to have you can't just from a village come out and then spend a couple of lifetimes making bricks just so a building can be built for a family. It would take so long for that type of thing to take place. You would have for the bricks and the stones to be made to build these structures. You need an industry that makes bricks and custom stones and harvests them and cuts them to precision, you would need an industry of hundreds of people working to create those. Because we're talking about buildings, if this isn't taking place like we would do something in the modern times, you wouldn't live. You wouldn't live long enough if you lived 100 years. You would not live long enough for your home, your personal castle, or for something for a king to live in. You wouldn't live long enough for that to be built. I don't care how many people you bring out. The logistics of creating just in the bricks alone is mind-blowing. Then you have how since the bricks weren't just sitting a block away, like you didn't decide, I'm going to build this castle here. So a block away exists a quarry or some place to make bricks that just is conveniently real close to here. And, we can get a wagon and just wheel it across the street. That's not what's going on. This is not the way it works. There has to be somewhere to manufacture all of these bricks. So you get into transportation. How were these bricks transported, or large stones transported, possibly 10, 20, 100, 1,000 miles? How were they transported from where they were harvested from the ground, mined, chipped away from the side of rocks, whatever? What transport did they have? Because stones are very heavy, and it takes a lot of donkeys, it takes a lot of mules, it takes a lot of oxes, whatever they're doing, and it would take a lot of wagons to try to get those heavy objects up a cliff with an incline that modern dump trucks would have a hard time going up. So the transportation is a question all of its own. How would they get the roads cleared? You have to clear roads, make them flat. They have to be hard, like some type of cementing or rock foundation for 100 miles or whatever. And it has to be cleared all the way up to the castle or building. And it has to be done to where these heavy loads won't sink onto a dirt street. Because one good rain and that would end the transportation for a couple of weeks or more. And you can't have that because you'd never finish the building. Another phase of this is the timber. There are timber used, not primitive, like we build structures today where everything's a square. The most simpleton math and construction ability of doing construction there is the square, the building using a square or a triangle. That's most of the places we live right now. That's the construction. We live in a square building with a triangle on top. They built things, castles, story upon story, with columns and archways. The archway in some of these structures is getting into math and construction that makes the average carpenter's life a nightmare because of the precision involved in constructing it, in the bending of the wood, in the creating of multiple stories on top of it, the creating of the perfection within it, and the aesthetics within all of that. That goes beyond the advancement of structures and the cost. They must have been living in a time when money was no object, because no matter what time, if it was slaves, you'd have to buy a lot of slaves. But then how do you turn slaves into master carpenters? I don't see that happen. A person doesn't live long enough to master that level of skill multiplied by thousands of people, whether it's stonework or woodwork or becoming artist or metalwork. So you run into problems with that. You're looking at someone has to live for hundreds of years, perhaps. That's starting to make more sense as to the artistry, and they have to have advanced mindset. They have to have advanced knowledge of how to do things, almost a heavenly brain, in order to construct and imagine these things. So moving on from the archways and the pillars, we get into the artistry of the material, the trim work, be it gold. So someone has to mine the gold or mine whatever metal it is from a certain area. So you have to have an industry that's mining tons of metal. And then you have to smelt it, you have to create it, you have to mix it precisely to create certain types of blends so that it'll bend, it won't just break, so that it's thin. That is an entire industry of itself. We're not talking about a few people from a village finding enough ore or something to make a sword. We're talking about a multi-story building that is laid out with tons and tons of the most ornate gold or metal inlay and structures and wrappings that you can imagine. That takes an industry in itself. You didn't just on the side of a cliff somewhere or up on this mountain have tons and tons and tons. If you've ever watched shows like the guys in Alaska with these giant earth movers and excavators and sifting machines digging up soil and digging up ground looking for just a little bit of gold for their entire season. And they're like, oh yeah, look, it took us all season. Imagine what it took to gather that much gold, that much metal during that time period just to make those one ornate room. Then you get into the beautiful flooring of marble or stone. Some of these stones hard to the point where it takes nowadays takes a diamond cutting chisel or a diamond cutting rotary blade to cut this material. They weren't cutting those stones, especially these slabs. Say you have a 4x8 slab of marble or a 4x8 sheet of flooring material that's maybe 2 inches thick by a 4 foot by 8 foot. What were they cutting these stones with to make them perfectly unified and flat and enough material covering a couple football fields to make, and then the material on top, what did they polish the stones with to make them so smooth? How did they make it glass-like smooth? They had to polish it with something. Do you think they got a polishing stone and a few thousand slaves and got them up on the side of the cliff or got them somewhere and they had a little bit of water and they were polishing them by hand, rubbing and getting it all smooth so they could take it up to the king's castle? I don't think that was happening. I think there was some advanced technology that we're not being told about. Also, getting this stone oftentimes may have come from hundreds of miles away or thousands of miles or across an ocean. Let's say like marble from Italy. How does it end up on the side of a mountain in a castle or a place in Russia or in Germany? How was tons, if you've ever moved marble or had a kitchen countertop made of marble, it takes several men to move one section to set on your countertop. Imagine the tons and tons and tons, 2 football fields of this miraculous material, these marbles and such being moved to be put in these buildings. Ox carts, bronze chisels, peasants. No, not buying it. Now, then we get into the artistry involved in these buildings. We have paintings on the ceilings, masterpieces, like you'd have a little hanging in a museum. You have this little picture, a 4x3 picture, a masterful artwork hanging there, and everybody's like, oh, wow, it's so beautiful. Look at the colors. How did they paint gigantic murals, 200 by 200 feet, on curved ceilings, masterful artworks? Who painted those there on those ceilings? And how long would it take to paint a masterpiece on a domed ceiling, and that just be one room out of hundreds of rooms? There's a thought for you. Almost like angels painted it, or someone with a angel-like mentality and body. Then we have the metal artwork, the creation of the thinned metals wrapped or constructed around, and it looked like flowers or overlaid pillars, or look like pine cone structures, or coming out from lights hanging from the ceiling, and it looks like a flower all created. It's so beautiful. And that is a masterful art in itself. How long would it take to make hundreds of those, or thousands of pieces of individual artwork out of gold or out of a precious metal of some sort, and make enough to go throughout an entire castle? That's mind-blowing in itself. And then you have railings, or made out of iron or different metals, and the bending of those metals, the precise artwork in creating those. Often we have machines now that will rapidly put it in bends to a certain shape. How long would it take to construct a mile or so of ornate railing to go throughout a building of a precious metal, and within that railing have things like cherubim out of metal carved, molded into it, or ornate structures of different designs, or people's faces and stuff wrapped in out of metal. It's mind-blowing, the artistry involved in making just a short section of that. Needless to say, thousands of feet of that throughout a building. That's mind-blowing in and of itself. So these are just a few of the ideas, not even getting to the foundation work of these buildings. If you were to sit down with an architect and go over the design of the foundation, the basement and the foundation, because that's the strength of a building, they would tell you it may take a year or two to sit down and plan out just the foundation and the ideas for the structure of that. That should be mind-blowing just in and of itself. So regardless of what happened during the millennial reign, and it is a great study, and it is waking a lot of people up to the fact that we are being deceived in our current time and about our lives. The most important thing we need to dwell on right now is saving our Christian countries, so that our children and our children's children have a Christian nation to live in. Hey guys, real quick, just wanted to let you know that these books are on sale, both in digital copy and on Amazon. Reason to Believe. Now, the title talks about hiding the millennial kingdom of Jesus, which they did, and we'll go into the book and show you proof of that. And it also says that it's for every Protestant and that they should have this information and know it. But in all factuality, when I began this book, it wasn't written for Protestant Christians. It was written for every human on the planet who isn't a Satanist, because the people running things, the people trying to control everything in every aspect of your life, this book right here will show you how every time you turn on the news, every time you get on the internet, every ad you look at, they are interjecting something in there to influence your subconscious, to get you to stay entrapped in their system of the dark side. I promise you 100%, once you look at this book, I'm telling you, my friends, once you see what they have been doing since the time you were a child until this point to keep you under their control, you will have zero doubt. So that book right there, Reason to Believe, is how you can know your enemy so they can't control you anymore. The second, they're both courses I made, but I made them into books if you want them, or you can get the courses. The second one is called Millionaire Mindset. It doesn't really necessarily mean about just becoming a millionaire. It's about having the mindset like King Solomon, where you have wisdom, how to recover and do the things in life that you really want to be doing and get out of the trap they have put us in. Mortgage debt, called a death note. All of these things with usury and lending, keeping you enslaved, getting you to go to school and learn 12 to 14 years of useless information. Go to get a doctorate degree. You get a doctorate degree in indoctrination so you can further indoctrinate other people. I promise you that once you go through these two courses, you will be 100% better than 99.9% of the world population under their control. We also have courses. Let's say you decide that you rather get the newsletter and get the courses sent to you in small micro bits in our news briefings. Then you can sign up for a course. You get emails. You can print out the little 1-page or 2-page document and read it anytime you want. This will take you through and also give you the nutrition courses, and all the information about getting healthy and losing weight and fighting off this system that also wants to poison you, make you sick so they can profit off you. I promise you, this is what they're doing. Every single aspect of your life has been targeted, manipulated, and is being used by these people to profit themselves and make you small. Get these books or get the course. I promise you, it is 24 years worth of work from me I'm giving to you to help you and your family survive these evil MRFers.